Right, good morning, grade 10s. I want to go through some question in your textbook from exercise 8.5, finding the points of intersection and also finding some of the other coordinates. I hope this video will help you. Let's get started. Okay, so the question, I'm going to share it on my screen. So this is a question here. Now, the question that you have to do is this one. So determine the coordinates of A and B, determine the coordinates of C and E, and read from the graphs. Okay, let's try and address this now. So the graph shows us a parabola, positive parabola, happy one, x squared minus 8, and a straight line, which has a formula to x. So CDE is perpendicular to the x-axis. Now the first thing they ask us to work out is the coordinates of A and B. So first thing they ask us to work out is the coordinates of A and B. So points A and B are points where the graph meets points A and B are points where the straight line graph meets a parabola. And a point where two different graphs meet is called a point of intersection, So a point where two different graphs meet is called a point of intersection. So in this case, it's a point where the straight line graph intersects with the parabola. Now, to find the x coordinate of a point of intersection, we always use this approach. We say equation 1 is equal to equation 2. So to find the x coordinate of the point of a point of intersection, we equate the two equations and solve for x. So let me repeat that. To find the x coordinate of a point of intersection, we equate the two equations and solve for x. So there are two equations. It's this equation and that one. So we equate them, then we solve for x. So x squared minus 8 is equal to 2x. Now we have to solve for x here. So this, you should realize, is going to be a trinomial. So we need to put it in standard form. Now, in order to solve this quadratic equation, we must factorize. We factorize, we get this. Factorizing a trinomial, you should know that pretty well. Minus sign there means you have opposite signs in the bracket. This is going to be minus 4 and plus 2. So this is the factorization solutions you get. So you get two possible values of x equals minus 2 or x equals 4. You should be able to make out from the graph which value is which. So x equals minus 2. So I just want to erase something here. So x equals minus 2 is this one. And then x equals 4 is that point. Now we need to find the y coordinates of these. Now, to find the y coordinate, you can substitute your x value into either one of the two equations because the point of intersection lies on both equations at the same time. So you can substitute your x values into either one, and you'll still end up with the same answer. So I always go for the simpler one. I'm going to substitute my x values into the straight line one. So y equals 2. In the place of x, I'm going to replace it with minus 2. So find a y coordinate of -4. So the a value has coordinates -2, -4. Now the b value, I'm going to substitute into the straight line again. It becomes 2 times 4. And then the y coordinate is 8. There, the y coordinate then is 8. So we get that answer. So the two coordinates of A and B is -2, -4, 4, and 8. You should see P as both x and y positive, A as both x and y negative. All right, so we've done with this part. Okay, now, now we need to work out the coordinates of C and E if CE is equal to 9, right? I'm gonna move on. If you want to take this down and process it some more, you can pause the video. All right, so I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna import this file again. All right, now let's go and do C and E. If CE is equal to 9. So, C, if CE equals 9 means the distance from it, CE equals 9 means that the distance from C to E, that vertical distance is 9. It's a vertical distance. So, and now when you're dealing with vertical distances, you're dealing with Y values, right? And to work out how to actually work out the distance between C and E, you would have to take the largest Y value minus the smallest Y value. Well, unfortunately, we don't have the Y value of C and we don't have the Y value of E. However, we do know what function C is in and what function E is in. And basically, you look at the formulas. The functions are basically some forms of Y. So if the first one with the parabola, we can think of as Y1, and the straight line one we can think of as Y2. So if you wanted to work out the distance from C to E in terms of the symbols, you take the bigger one, Y1 minus Y2. So to work out CE, we take out this bigger function minus a smaller one. And because to work out this distance, you would have to take the big number minus a small number. So we don't have the information in terms of numbers. We have the information in terms of the formulas. So the Y at the top minus the Y at the bottom. So what is at the top? At the top, you have a straight line. At the bottom, you have a parabola. So to work out this vertical distance, you take the top function minus bottom functions. So this kind of question, when you are given the distance and you want to work out the coordinates of these lines, you need to be considered that this distance in terms of functions is top function minus bottom function. So I'm going to just give you vertical distance. So the vertical distance is always Y top, which is the top function, minus Y bottom, which is the bottom function. The top function is bigger than the top, or the top function is higher than the lower function. The reason why it makes sense to take the top function minus the bottom function is because the top function is closer to the positive y-axis, and then the bottom function is closer to the negative y-axis. So basically at this region here, the straight line is above the parabola. So we always say function at the top minus function of the bottom. Well, we've been told that in the question that the vertical distance is 9. Now we just need to take the top function minus the bottom function. So x squared minus, the top function is actually the straight line. Look at C, C lies on the straight line, E lies on the parabola. So the top function is 2x minus the bottom function, which is x squared minus 8. And 9 is equal to 2x minus x squared plus 8. So we end up with this. Then I'm going to rearrange this and put it in standard form. I end up with x squared minus 2x plus 9 minus 8 equals 0. So I end up with this trinomial x squared minus 2x. 9 minus 8 is 1. So then this is x, 1, 1. Plus means the signs in the brackets are the same. So this is minus, minus. So what we get is that x minus 1 equals 0 or x minus 1 equals 0. So we find that the x value, the x at points, the x, you see point C and E, they share the same x value. And that x value we found to be x equals 1. So now once you have found that, we can now find the y values. So I'm going to now see C lies on the straight line. So to find the y value of C, I'm going to substitute x equals 1 into this. So I get 2. So that means point C has the coordinates 1 and 2. 1, 2. Now point E lies on the parabola. So I'm going to substitute x equals 1 in the parabola to find the coordinates of E. 1 squared minus 8. One minus 8, that's minus 7. So the coordinates of E is 1 and negative 7. And let me go through the whole process again. So when you have a vertical distance, we can work out the vertical distance in function form. To work out the vertical distance, you take the top function minus the bottom function. They gave us a vertical distance as 9. So our top function is a straight line, which is 2x, minus the bottom function is the parabola. What do I mean by top function? Look at this region. At the top of line CE is point C. C is on the straight line. E, on the other hand, is on the parabola. So the top function is a straight line minus the bottom function, which is a parabola. We've got those. So now that's the formula we use, and then we solve for x. Then C and E do share an x value. Once we found the x value, we substitute into the respective function. C lies on the straight line. So we substitute x equals 1 into the straight line. We find the coordinates of C. Then E lies on the parabola. We substitute x equals 1 into the parabola. Then we find the y coordinate of E. So the coordinates of C is 1, 2. Coordinates of E is 1 minus 7. Okay, let's do the last part. We're going to do the last part together, and then we're done. So I'm going to import. Right, so now this graph, it says read from the graphs the solution of the inequality. So 2x is greater than x squared minus 8. So this says look for all the areas where the line 2x is greater than x squared minus 8. So I want to find all the regions where the line 2x is above. So 2x is greater than x squared minus 8 means we're looking for all the areas where the straight line is above the parabola. I'm just turning to something here in the textbook. And then we'll do this quickly. Okay. So we want to see in which region is a straight line above the parabola. That's what 2x is greater than x squared minus 8 means. We're looking for where the straight line is above the parabola. So I just want to look at some of the coordinates again. Okay, so I'm going to try and do it on this page. I'm going to use a different color. Okay, so the region where the straight line actually is above the parabola is this part. You see from here, in this part, you see the straight line is above the parabola. So that's what they're asking. 2x is greater than x squared minus 8. 2x is a straight line. X squared minus 8 is a parabola. So then there they're saying they're looking for where the straight line is above the parabola. Here you see, before A, here the parabola is above the straight line. Again, here, the parabola is above the straight line. So, but for I, they're looking for 2x is greater than x squared minus 8. So where the straight line is above the parabola. Straight line here is in purple. And then the parabola, I'm going to highlight in yellow in this region. You see that the straight line is actually appearing above, and then the parabola is appearing below. So between A and B. So how do you write this answer? So the answer, it will be in an interval form. And so you're looking for the regions of X where the straight line is above the parabola, which we can see is between A and B. So it's between x equals -2 and x equals 4. So the answer for that is x is an element, square brackets, because there's no open circle and there's no arrows, square brackets, x is an element from -2 till 4. X is an element from the -2 till 4. And we're using squared brackets now because there's no open circle. So the function is, that means included. Included means the function has values at x equals -2 and x equals 4. So there's no open circle. So if there's no open circle and no arrow, then we use square brackets. Okay, so that's, so the 2x is greater than x squared minus 8 in the interval where x is an interval element of -2 to 4. What that means, 2x is greater than x squared minus 8 is saying we're looking for the regions where the straight line is above the parabola. Now we're going to look at the other part, which is the opposite. I'm going to use different colors for that. Just confirm something here quickly. Okay. Now we're going to look for the areas where the straight line is below the parabola. So it says here 2x is less than or equal to x squared minus 8. So we're going to look for the regions where the straight line is below the parabola. So where is the straight line below the parabola? Well, in this region, you see before A, the parabola is above or above the straight line. In this region here, the parabola is also above the straight line. And you see that the straight line here is below the parabola. So in these regions, the straight line is below the parabola, straight line is below this. So that's what they're asking for. 2x is less than or equal to x squared minus 8. They're looking for the regions or area, the parts of the function where, a part of x where the straight line is below the parabola. So what we can see is that for all the x, what we can see is that for all the x values before x equals -2, which is a coordinate of A, all the x values before x equals -2, it's true that the straight line, the parabola is bigger, or the parabola is above the straight line. The parabola is above the straight line. You see, it's above the straight line. So our answer is going to be, first thing, this is true for all x values smaller than -2, which is all the x values to the left of this point A. All right. We can say smaller than or equal to -2. So from here, in other words, from here going to the left, you see the parabola is always above the straight line. Then from B going to the right, the parabola will also always be above the straight line. So x is less than or equal to -2, or x is greater than or equal to 4. So let's explain that again. So that answers the last part, question C. Question C, where we're asking now where 2x is less than or equal to x squared minus 8. In other words, where the straight line, you find it below the parabola. So the parabola here is above the straight line. Here the parabola is above the straight line. Between A and B, the parabola was the straight line was above the parabola. So if you look from A to the left, the parabola will always be above the straight line. That's why we're saying for all x values smaller than -2. This means x values smaller than -2, smaller than or equal to -2. From -2 and smaller x's of value, the parabola will always be above the straight line, which meets that condition. For all x values that are 4 or greater, the parabola will be above the straight line. So that's why it's this region and that region. So up from x equals 4 and above, and the greater values of x, the parabola will always be above the straight line. For x equals -2 and below, sorry, the parabola will be always above the straight line. Okay. Right, that's the end of the explanation of these questions. I hope it was helpful. Have a great day. We'll see you then next week.